Okay, let's talk about something that just doesn't add up. We're living in this incredible time, right? We've got technology that can create almost anything we want. So why does it feel like everything, from a place to live to the food we eat, is getting more and more expensive?
You've seen it, right? I mean, you walk down the street in any major city and you see these brand new, empty apartment buildings right next to people who have nowhere to sleep. Or you hear about supermarkets throwing out literal tons of perfectly good food while food banks are struggling. It doesn't make sense.
And the answer we always get, the official explanation, is this one simple word: scarcity. We're told, hey, that's just life. There isn't enough to go around. But what if that's not really the truth? What if scarcity isn't a fact of nature, but more of a story we've been told?
So let's dig into that. We've got to figure out if scarcity is some fundamental law of the universe, like gravity, or if it's actually a business plan, something our entire economy is built on by design.
So what exactly is economic scarcity? Well, in any Econ 101 class, they'll tell you it's the basic idea that we have limited stuff, but we have unlimited wants. It's presented like this iron law. If everything were free, we'd run out of it all immediately.
But here's the twist. Researchers like Desai and Lemley argue that our whole system isn't just dealing with scarcity, it's built on it. For something to have value in our economy, it has to be scarce. If there's plenty for everyone, the whole model kind of breaks.
And this isn't a new idea. When you look back through history, you see this strange pattern again and again. Whenever a group that's not part of the main power structure suddenly gets a lot of, well, anything, the system tends to react pretty badly.
You can see it in how different cultures view the world. For many indigenous peoples, the environment was a partner, something to be cared for. In contrast, the European settler perspective often saw the land as just a pile of resources waiting to be turned into profit. That one difference really set the stage for everything that came next.
So that raises a really uncomfortable question. What happens when a community, one that's outside the dominant system, suddenly strikes it rich and creates its own abundance? Well, history has some pretty disturbing answers.
Just look at the 1920s. Oil was discovered on Osage Nation land, and overnight they became some of the richest people in the world. What happened next was a horrifying reign of terror, a series of murders designed to steal that wealth. At the exact same time, the Greenwood district in Tulsa, known as Black Wall Street, was an incredibly successful, thriving black community, and a white mob burned it to the ground.
And make no mistake, this wasn't random chaos. According to historian Dr. Carlos Moreno, this was about economics. Greenwood wasn't just a neighborhood. It was a symbol of black economic success, and that success was seen as a threat to the established order. So it was wiped out.
Okay, so that brings us to today. This pattern of controlling abundance and wealth, it hasn't disappeared. Sources say it's just evolved. Instead of being destroyed, now it's just concentrated. So where did all the insane amount of wealth our society generates actually go?
The wild thing is, a lot of this money isn't even really being used. It's not circulating. It's just sitting in assets, being hoarded. You can think of it like a dragon from a fantasy story, just sleeping on a giant mountain of gold that it never ever spends.
And the scale of this hoard is just mind-bending. Look at this. The richest 10% of people on Earth own 76% of all the wealth. Meanwhile, the entire bottom half of humanity, that's billions of people, owns just 2%. Just let that number sink in for a second.
So how does this happen? Well, one huge driver is the explosion in CEO pay. Back in 2018, the average CEO in the US made 278 times what their typical worker did. Now compare that to 1965, when the ratio was just 20-1. That's a massive shift of money from the many to the few.
And if you think this is just how it is everywhere, well, it's not. When you compare the US to other wealthy countries using what's called the Gini Index, it's a standard way to measure inequality. The United States is a huge outlier. This isn't an accident. It's the result of choices.
And you know, this goes beyond just the numbers. It gets into something more fundamental, our values. Some thinkers say this is the point where healthy ambition morphs into greed. Greed isn't just about wanting stuff. It's when getting more stuff becomes more important than things like kindness or helping others.
So the big question is, are we stuck with this? Is a future where there's plenty for everyone even possible? And if it is, what's stopping us from getting there?
And this is where things get really frustrating and also kind of hopeful. The truth is, we are already living in a world of abundance. Our problem isn't making enough stuff. Our problem is getting it to people. It's a distribution problem.
I mean, just look at food. This is incredible. Way back in 2012, the world was already producing enough food to feed every single person alive, with enough left over for another 1.6 billion people. People aren't hungry because there's no food. They're hungry because of economics.
And our ability to create this abundance is only accelerating. Think about it. Digitization means we can copy information for free. 3D printing can put a factory in anyone's home. Gene editing and renewable energy could solve some of our biggest problems. These technologies are fundamentally anti-scarcity.
You know, there was this old economic belief that no one would ever create anything if they weren't getting paid for it. The internet basically blew that idea out of the water. One paper made this hilarious point, saying if that were true, we are now a world of blockheads gleefully creating and sharing stuff just because we want to.
Which brings us back to the big, flashing, neon question. If the technology is there, if the resources are there, and if people are actually more willing to share and create than we thought, what is stopping us?
The roadblock, it might just be that one single rule that our entire economic system is built on, the one we started with. The idea that for something to be valuable, it must be scarce.
And that leaves us with a real paradox, doesn't it? Our technology is pushing us toward a future of unbelievable abundance for everyone. But our economic system is pulling with all its might in the opposite direction because it needs things to be scarce to work. These two things are on a collision course. You have to wonder, which one's going to win?